Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about Metroid Dread. So as I stated a few days ago in my previous video, me and Brandon are sort of recording a few different topics all around at the same point. I'm away from vacation right now, I'm also still doing a fair bit of grieving, but there's a few different things that I want to talk about with you guys, and Brandon and I decided that there is some cool topics we could sort of discuss. So last time we talked about how a 3D Kirby could sort of play out and if that would make sense and what that would sort of mean. This time around we're going to be talking about Metroid Dread because we recently got a trailer, a 30-second brand new trailer for Metroid Dread that shows off some pretty interesting imagery here. It's very creepy. We see Samus in this orange suit. We even see more Chozo. And what's fascinating about this is that the Chozo seems to be actually friendly. But then there's another shot that shows Chozo down. And there are other Chozo that seem to be antagonistic to these fallen Chozo, and they seem militarized. So there seems to be some sort of contrast here, and sort of fueling this big theory of there being both good Chozo and evil Chozo, and they're both playing a role in Metroid Dread. How this will sort of come together, what does this all mean? That's what we're talking about today. But Brandon, just surface level from that 30-second trailer, what are you sort of thinking right now about Metroid Dread? And if you don't want to talk about specifically about the Chozo yet, that's fine, but you know, that I feel like was like one of the big sort of things they showed off in that trailer.
Yeah, I just thought the trailer was cool. It wasn't very long, but it did show us some stuff story-wise that we had definitely not seen. It was like hieroglyphs, and the new suit color was very interesting. I'm wondering what that's all about, like what power-ups may be associated with that color, because usually your suit changes as you get more power-ups and it changes the design, so I'm wondering why exactly the color is different. It's so
Right.
different. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the biggest thing for me, other than the Chozo, is just why is the suit changed?
yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Chozo will be related to this because the Chozo are this ancient sort of species in the Metroid universe that seem to be sort of this all-knowing wise species that were always depicted as very peaceful until Metroid Dread, and they are like the ancients of the entire like space civilization, but they also help to raise Samus. They are the ones who genetically enhanced Samus with Chozo DNA. They gave her that power suit, and throughout the different Metroid games, Samus is always exploring their ruins and finding different power-ups and getting stronger. So it's probably gonna be related to that. Like, Samus is likely gonna run into different Chozo ruins and find different power-ups and get stronger throughout Metroid Dread, as she has in all previous Metroid games. We've already seen different shots of actual like Chozo ruins, so that's not really gonna come as any surprise there. But the interesting things about this time around is that we're now seeing living Chozo. Like, before there was this one shot in the initial trailer, but now we have even more footage sort of confirming that, yeah, the Chozo are alive. There are some Chozo, and it looks like we're going to be interacting with them this time around. But what was fascinating is that, well, if we're going to run the Chozo, why? Are these good Chozo? Are these evil Chozo? Well, maybe there's a little bit of both. But going back to your point about the suit, before we jump into the Chozo part of these things, in terms of the good and evil, it is orange, right? I feel like
it's kind of like a goldy orange.
Yeah, like a goldish orange, which is more akin to what we've seen from Samus normally. Like, that's kind of like her primary sort of color, that goldish orange, right? So it's almost like Samus is getting closer to that with this new color we're seeing in the trailer. But I don't think this is early game footage. I think what we saw at E3 and the Nintendo Treehouse, that was basically the beginning of the game. I mean, they pretty much told us that at the Treehouse.
It definitely was.
Right, so Samus being in that blue and white seems to suggest that. However, when we go to the trailer, we do see a look at Samus's ship, which does look like what it was in Fusion. It's not like the normal orange one anymore, but I just want to see what happens here, because it may be the case that Samus, yeah, we see her walk out of the actual ship, and she is clad in orange. So I don't know if that's just a design change as opposed to a power-up, or, I mean, there's also a good chance she could just come out of her ship. So it's hard to say for sure what's going on. Or maybe something happens to Samus immediately after and she loses the orange and she gets that blue look. I don't know. You know, that's the weird thing, is that they show Samus landing and her coming out of the ship in her orange now. So I don't know if they changed things around or if she's landing in more than one planet.
She walks up to the high ground. She still has a lot of like white on her, so it's not quite the original suit, and it is much more of a yellow gold look to it.
Yeah, maybe she gets that blue very
it's still
early
much
on.
Closer than what you have in the early game.
Right. It's just interesting because it based off her leaving the ship, it's hard to say for sure what comes first, the orange gold or the blue, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the case that she's leaving her ship for the first time, but given that it's a cutscene, I don't know. That is certainly peculiar there. But let's transition to this Chozo aspect here, unless there's anything else I want to add to that, because I honestly, just me looking at, it's hard to say which one comes first, because based off the treehouse, the blue seems to come first, but based off this trailer, I'm not sure.
First. So the treehouse footage, they're literally guiding you through like basic mechanics of the game.
Right.
So definitely, and
unless there was a design change.
They start off with no health packs and no rock, like only like a little bit of rockets and things. So you can definitely tell it's like the beginning of the game.
You know what? Maybe something happens to Samus where she loses some of her power-ups, because at the end of Fusion, she actually has an orange look. So what we're seeing in this trailer actually could be right. This actually could be
your power-ups look.
Yeah, so this might actually be Samus's actual look at the very, very beginning of Metroid Dread, the orange look. Because at the end of Fusion, which is Metroid 4, the game before this one, that's basically her look. So this could simply be like that, you know, the 3D sort of look version of how she was in Fusion. But then how does she get to the blue part? Either A, it was just a straight up design change, or something happens between the very, very beginning and the opening gameplay moments of the game. Maybe she loses her powers, maybe she gets a power-up. Hard to say. There could be there's obviously some sort of change there. The question is it change within the gameplay and story, or design itself from the developers?
We never saw the intro cutscene. Like, the treehouse didn't like straight up start the game, so we don't know exactly how it starts. So that definitely could be from the very starting sequence of the game.
Yeah, for sure. It could be related to the Chozo too. Like, maybe like that Chozo that sort of looks to be greeting Samus is the one that does something to Samus. I mean, it may not be negative. It could be an evil Chozo pretending to be good, and this Chozo sort of just tricks Samus, and Samus trusts him because the Chozo raised Samus, and it ends up sort of tearing away some of the powers from Samus, or it's a power-up. It could go either way, right? We don't know if this Chozo is good or evil itself. It just sort of, it appears to be greeting someone, presumably Samus, right? But what's interesting is that we actually see some pieces of imagery that seem to be sort of remasters or remakes of the initial pieces of concept art we had from Samus Returns. And in one of the shots, we see, I mean, you can see what appear to be the Chozo people, but with weaponry. And as I stated earlier, the Chozo have always been sort of considered to be a very peaceful sort of species. So to see militarized Chozo, it's implying that maybe there's something else going on here. Now, it's not to say that Chozo haven't created weapons before. Of course they have. They're behind Samus, who's the most powerful warrior in the universe, right? So it's not like the Chozo are 100% pacifist. That's not the case. But they've always been depicted as good-natured people. So these pieces of imagery are suggesting maybe otherwise, or at least like there's different factions here. Because we even do have one shot that you see some Chozo fall into the floor, but there seems to be others sort of like above them, and it does seem to be suggesting some sort of divide here between the Chozo. So from our perspective, good Chozo and evil Chozo. What is this going to mean exactly? Is the final enemy of the game a Chozo?
I don't know. It's a good question. I believe and you can correct me on this if I'm like off base, but from what I know, in Samus Returns, and they're showing a lot of the same concept art here, but the concept art kind of suggested that on SR388 there were, the Chozo, very peaceful. They made the Metroids, and then, they tried to get rid of them. But there was also, apparently, there was like this evil Chozo people who came and like were part of the reason that the Chozo went like extinct, because they just were like killing them. But I'm not sure
kill each other off.
exactly how the lore on that works.
Yeah.
This concept of evil Chozo does seem to be vastly hinted as one of the downfalls of the good Chozo.
And maybe that's what it is. There was a bit of a civil war there.
Yeah. It seems like, from what I understand, the Chozo like came from another place. So it wasn't like the Chozo on SR388 had a civil war, but more like Chozo from somewhere else came to SR388 and fought them for some reason. That's just what I understand.
Yeah, and maybe in Metroid Dread, what we're going to learn about is how there have been two different factions of Chozo. And maybe these Chozo are a whole other thing you have to deal with that haven't really been a known quantity beforehand, right? So maybe instead of having to fight space pirates, you have to fight evil Chozo, like evil Chozo warriors. So maybe there's actually a whole bunch of surviving Chozo, but most of them are evil. But I've always thought it would be weird that if they were to reintroduce Chozo as actually a living species, because throughout the history of Metroid they've always been considered to be extinct, it would be weird for the first one you see to actually be evil. Like, I feel like if they've always been depicted as good-natured, it would be strange to just all of a sudden just give us evil Chozo and never actually give us a living, surviving, good-natured Chozo. So maybe there's a couple surviving Chozo that are still alive, that are good-natured, but there are also far more of these evil Chozo, quote-unquote, that are more of the warmongering type. And maybe that Chozo we see that seems to be greeting, presumably Samus, is one of the good ones, but this Chozo shows you that there's a lot more going on here, and there's a bit of a war going on. Or maybe it's not even a war, but something, because there's probably not too many good Chozo left to fight.
I wonder if that is the same Chozo from the first trailer.
It seems
where
very
you can see
similar.
him doing the controls.
Yeah.
I can't tell if it's the same one or not, but it was interesting. Because the theory I kind of had is, because Nintendo's kind of confirmed that I forget the name of the robots, the Emmys.
Yeah.
That they are like malfunctioning in a way, like they're not supposed to be trying to kill Samus.
Right.
We kind of
So
learned that through some of the other things. Yeah. So like, why? Maybe it's the Chozo. Maybe in that first trailer when he saw him like moving all the panels, maybe he was messing with the Emmys and their like controls. Who knows what exactly they were doing?
Could be. I mean, the Chozo have always been an advanced civilization. They do know about incredible technology, so it's not like far-fetched to say that some Chozo could have found the Emmys and done something to override their systems to make them be targeting Samus, right? Like, we see these different pieces of imagery from both Samus Returns and Metroid Dread that imply that there was a militarized force of Chozo, that they created a lot of weaponry. I mean, within the lore of Metroid, we know they've created weaponry, ancient weapons. Look at Samus. Samus herself is evidence of that. So to think that maybe a Chozo could do something with these Emmy, yeah, I mean, that's not really necessarily a stretch. I mean, from everything they've sort of said with the different reports, they are implying that there is some sort of mysterious evil here. Maybe it is a Chozo. Maybe that's what's going on. And there is also the possibility that there may not be any good Chozo. Like, that Chozo is greeting you may pretend to be good, but they're actually going to betray you, right? Or they're going to trick you. Like, that is a possibility for sure. We do not know. And maybe that adds to the dread this time around, right? You don't know who you can trust, which is fascinating, I think, actually. But there's another little shot that we see in the trailer that shows like Samus's hand glowing red, and it's almost like, she's sort of like struggling, almost like angry.
Yeah.
And we see her eyes sort of
it's like a flash
widen.
to her face.
Right. So I wonder what that is. Is that her? Is that them sort of expressing like a rage or anger? Like maybe Samus hears of the news of these Chozo that have been taken down by the evil warmongering Chozo, and because the Chozo are the ones that raised her, she has a hatred and an anger for that. She wants to fight for them. Like maybe there's some of that. But another possibility, as I've heard some people suggest, is that maybe it's not anything to do with an anger, but maybe something inside of her is trying to take over. Because she does supposedly have some of the X-Parasite, so maybe there's something to that. Or maybe it's a mix. Maybe the X-Parasite pushes like her anger and she wants to vent because she hears of her Chozo brethren that suffered.
Right.
It could go either way. There's a lot of possibilities here for sure. But it's just kind of interesting because now we've gone this quick little trailer and we now have more questions than answers. How did Samus start with the orange suit? I thought the blue suit was the beginning of the game, but then when you really think about it, the orange suit makes sense because that's how things ended in Fusion. So something changed there.
Her pre I lose all my items now suit, so
it could be it. Maybe she loses all her items, and then what we see in the treehouse is shortly after she loses the items. That could be the case. You know, maybe the Chozo tricks her, right? Maybe that's the case. It's hard to say right now, and it's just kind of fascinating because we're seeing actual living Chozo, which we have not seen in any previous Metroid game, and that's a big deal. So the game's coming soon. We're going to be getting more news, but it's just nice to see that Nintendo is hard pushing this game. They waited for the Dread report this week for the actual 35th anniversary for Metroid. They are celebrating this series. They are getting people to understand and know about the history of this series, and they are hyping things up with all the marketing here. That trailer was creepy. It was really, really creepy with that music at the beginning. Like that was, that they're doing something cool here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they actually acknowledged the 35th anniversary. They didn't even say anything for like Zelda. They actually have been talking about Metroid a lot, which is good. You know, it deserves it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they actually have a quality Metroid game now, and they're doing all this to push and market the series, and I think Nintendo understands that this is an opportunity for the Metroid series to get to another level. And I think that they're going to succeed. I think Metroid is going to do really well this time around.
Yeah, for sure. I think it will instantly be the best-selling Metroid game, period, probably as soon as it launches.
Yeah, for sure. But that's all our sort of thoughts right now for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are there good Chozo? Are there evil Chozo? Are there both? What's going on with Samus? Why is her suit orange? Why has it become blue? Or is there some sort of design change here? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But that's all for now. See you later.
See you guys.
Bye.